Before we start, turn your volume up, but not too loud. You're going to want to hear every knock. Welcome back to Fear Lane. Every story here starts the same way, with something ordinary, a house, a sound, a rule nobody remembers writing down. Tonight's rule is one you may already know without realizing it. If you've never heard of the 3 knocks, you're about to wish you hadn't. Stay till the end. I'll tell you what happens to the people who do answer. There is a rule that exists in more places than it should. Not a law, not written anywhere official, passed instead through grandmothers, through soldiers, through sailors who would rather sleep in the cold than break it. The rule is simple. If you hear 3 knocks in the night and no one is there, you do not answer. You do not open the door. And whatever you do, you never, ever knock back. Investigators who study folklore for a living will tell you that stories repeat themselves. Flood myths appear on every continent. So do stories of a great trickster, a hidden door, a forbidden fruit. But the 3 knocks are different. They don't just repeat, they behave the same way, describe the same sensation, and demand the same response across cultures that never had contact with each other. In the mountains of Appalachia, in Slavic villages, on Japanese fishing boats, in the deserts of the American Southwest, the pattern is identical. 3 knocks, a silence after, and a feeling reported again and again by people who share no language, no religion, no history, that something on the other side is waiting for permission. In 1974, a research team cataloging oral histories in rural West Virginia recorded 11 separate families describing the same experience independently, decades apart. A knock at the cabin door, always 3 raps, always at night, always when someone in the house was gravely ill or near death. The families called it the caller. None of them had ever spoken to each other. None had read the same books. When the researchers cross-referenced the accounts against Cherokee oral tradition from the same region, they found an almost identical warning, older than the settlers themselves. Do not answer the 3rd knock, because it is not calling the sick person's name, it is calling yours. This is where the story usually gets dismissed. Grief, sleep deprivation, the mind under stress. Reasonable explanations, and for most reported cases, probably correct ones. But there is a specific incident, still discussed in academic folklore circles today, that resists easy explanation, not because of what was heard, but because of what was recorded. In 1987, a research assistant working with a university-affiliated paranormal documentation project set up audio equipment in an abandoned farmhouse outside a small town in the northern United States, a site locals had avoided for 2 generations after a family vanished from it without explanation in the 1930s. The assistant wasn't hunting ghosts. She was testing audio equipment for an unrelated acoustic study, and the farmhouse was simply empty, quiet, and free. She stayed one night, she left the next morning, and never went back. What was on the tape became, briefly, a minor sensation in academic circles before the physical recording was lost in a fire at the university's archive building in 1996. A detail that, depending on who you ask, is either an unfortunate coincidence or the reason this story still gets told at all. Multiple researchers who reviewed the tape before its destruction described the same sequence: ambient room noise. Then, 40 minutes in, 3 knocks, evenly spaced, deliberate, coming from a door that led to a room with no other entrance and a boarded window. Then nothing for 6 minutes. Then, on the recording, the assistant's own voice, asking, "Who's there?" She had no memory of saying it. If this were the only account, it would be easy to file away. A tired researcher, a startled reaction, a story that grew in the retelling. But archivists tracking similar reports have found a disquieting consistency in what happens next in nearly every documented case where someone did answer, where they knocked back or opened the door or spoke into the silence. The knocking stops, immediately, permanently, and within a short period afterward, weeks, sometimes days, someone close to the person who answered dies in a manner none of them ever anticipated. Skeptics point out, correctly, that people die all the time and that our minds are extraordinary pattern-matching machines wired to find meaning in coincidence, especially under the shadow of fear. This is true, and it should be said plainly, because it's the responsible thing to say. And yet the pattern itself, not the deaths, but the belief, the rule, the specific shape of the warning, appears in places that should never have compared notes. Consider the maritime version. Sailors on merchant vessels, from Portuguese galleons in the 1500s to Norwegian fishing crews in the 20th century, have logged an almost identical superstition. 3 knocks on the hull from the outside, in open water, far from any obstruction that could explain the sound. Ship's logs, real, archived, verifiable documents, record captains ordering crews not to respond, not to look over the rail, not to call out. One entry from a Norwegian trawler in 1962 simply reads, "Third knock came at 0300, told the men to keep below. Morning brought calm water and 1 man short."
That log exists. It is held, along with the rest of that vessel's records, in a regional maritime archive, and its contents have been independently verified by at least 2 maritime historians. What happened to the missing crewman was never established. The official record lists him as lost overboard in calm conditions, a classification investigators still describe as unusual because overboard losses in documented weather like that are exceptionally rare. So we're left with a strange convergence, a warning that spans oceans and centuries, a behavior, the refusal to answer, that shows up in nearly identical form in cultures with no contact, and a small number of documented cases where someone broke the rule and something, statistically or otherwise, followed. Anthropologists who study this pattern have a theory, and it isn't supernatural, at least not on its face. They suggest the 3-knock warning may function as one of the oldest surviving pieces of applied psychology in human history. A rule invented long before anyone had the language for trauma or suggestion to stop grieving, exhausted, frightened people from acting on impulses that could get them hurt. Doors left open at night, strangers let in during unstable times. The rule survives, the theory goes, not because something is truly on the other side, but because the rule works. It keeps people safe, so it keeps getting passed down. It's a satisfying explanation. It's also, notably, not the explanation offered by the people who actually lived through it. Every documented account, the West Virginia families, the maritime logs, the 1987 recording, describes not a vague unease, but a specific, shared certainty. That the knock was not random, that it knew who was inside, and that answering it was never really a choice being offered. It was a mistake being invited.
The farmhouse from 1987 is still standing. It has changed hands twice since. Both times sold well under market value, both times by owners who declined to explain why they were leaving. The current property records list it as vacant. No further recordings have been made there, at least none that have been published. But local residents, when asked, will still tell you the same thing the Cherokee elders told the settlers, that the sailors carved into their logs, that the West Virginia families passed down to their children. If you hear 3 knocks and no one is standing there when you look, you let the silence answer for you.
because whatever is patient enough to knock exactly 3 times in exactly the same rhythm in every corner of the world for as long as anyone has been keeping records is not asking to come in by accident. It is asking because somewhere, at some point, someone already said yes.
So, if it's late where you are, and you hear something at the door, you already know what to do. If this one got under your skin, that's the job. Subscribe to Fear Lane for more stories that sit a little too close to true, and drop a comment telling me if you've ever heard something knock that shouldn't have. Lock your doors. Don't knock back. I'll see you on the next one.